It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Val, I'm over here. I promise I'm ready for the show today. And you know that I love good Grape Gabs, don't you?
I think we all love a good Grape Gab. Good golly gosh, oh gee, Steph, Grape Gabs get me all giddy.
Oh no, we are doing this, aren't we?
We are doing this.
And I am probably, just a little giddy, not just because it's a Grape Gab, but because I'm double fisting it with 2 glasses of wine. And, I just wanted to make sure that my listeners, don't think that I'm getting soft, guys, just because I had tea a couple weeks ago. And I have 2 glasses of wine. One of them is the 2013 Vinicola Perini Macaw Tannat from Brazil. And it's a fun label. It's a really low alcohol red, 11.5%, and an Italian owned family business, which is so weird because both of these wines are both Italian that I'm having, even though they're both from South America. But so, yeah, this one is like a $13 wine, lighter in color, lighter in body, everything. Val was like, whoa, that's a light Tannat wine. And yes, it is. And I thought when I first opened it, it's a screw cap, but when I first opened it, I thought that it smelled kind of like Andy's chocolate mints. Isn't that weird? But I could see this, being just a really easy drinking, fun, pizza type wine. And then the other one is the 2015 Bodega Garzon Tannat Reserve from Uruguay. That is a totally different wine, although not priced much more, only about $15. Just big tannins, gripping your gums, talking to you, obviously. Estate-grown fruit and hand-harvested, aged in French oak, also Italian family, an Italian enologist. Something that I would buy more often and probably give and share with friends.
Yes, it's a beautiful presentation. I've actually got the same one sitting right here.
I can't believe that.
It or not.
I know, it's so cool.
I know, because I had the 2014, the Garzon, just the regular Tannat in episode 136. And so this is where we kind of got the idea to do the Tannat Grape Gab. So I'm excited to have the 2015 Reserve right here along with you. It's not often we're drinking the same wine on the show.
Right.
And we're drinking the grape that we're going to be discussing today, that we're going to be gabbing about. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we don't often do that either.
No, we don't. But I did want to point out one thing. This is a 2015 Reserve. And I just want to get it out there that in America or in the New World, the word reserve doesn't really have legal meaning. I know there are some places that are trying to say, hey, if we use reserve, it means it's been aged a little bit longer or it's our finest wine. But it's unlike a riserva in Italy or in Spanish wine. When you see the word reserve, chances are it's just an expression that the winemaker is trying to make. It doesn't have a legal requirement in most places.
True.
In most places.
True dat.
True dat. Tripping on Tannat. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the grape Tannat. And we've talked about this grape a little bit before. We've had it on the show before. And I think you heard Lisa Airy mention that it's got a role in the legendary black wines of Cahors that we talked about. Even though Cahors are mostly Malbec, it is often supplemented with the Tannat or with Merlot. But it is the main component in Maturin. And that's actually one of its synonyms. So when we talk about grapes have different names, like Cot is a different name for Malbec, or Pinot Gris is another word for Pinot Grigio, depending on where you are. Well, Maturin is also a synonym for the Tannat grape which is the primary component in Mataron. It has to make up about 60 to 80% of the wine.
And if anybody's wondering, where is Mataron and what are we talking about? That is in France.
Yes.
And you spell it Madiran.
And this is one of those areas that I get really excited about. I love I would say, more obscure regions of Southwestern France. And I know that a lot of people are like, why are you calling it obscure? But these are not wines we get to see on the shelf very often. In fact, when I ordered my Mataron, I had to order it online before Colorado got all medieval with our retail laws here. So again, 60 to 80% Cabernet Sauvignon Fair Cervidou. There's a grape for you. And Cabernet Franc, which they call Bouchy, bringing a blend home.
Yeah.
But the Basque word, this is that kind of area in France that kind of borders Spain, that Basque, because there are Basques in Spain. We've talked about that before. But there is also that Basque region in the Pyrenees of France, and the Tarn and the Lot River also is where we're going to find this grape. So Bordelaise Belze is another word for this grape. It can also be called Mataron, as we mentioned, or it can be called Moustrou. And in Uruguay, which is what Steph and I are both drinking, it can be called Jariague, which is named for an immigrant from the Basque Country.
That's a fun word, Jariague. It almost sounds Basque. Well, it is Basque,
yes.
Right? Or from the same area.
It is Basque.
Yeah.
And I think he showed up in Argentina, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool. And let's talk about where it grows. So we were saying Mataron is from Southwest France, but Uruguay is its second home. And I wasn't surprised that that's one of the wines that I came home with when I went to the liquor store. I was surprised about the Brazil choice. But so it's in Uruguay thanks to these Basque settlers, like we said. They also brought the Mensang, and so the Tannat is there too. But it grows quite a few places now, and so maybe you're like, how did we not know about it? Well, you just have to look in the right places. But Tannat is very cozy over there in Virginia and also in California, thanks to Tablas Creek Vineyards and Paso Robles. And Tannat has traveled all over the world. Obviously, I have it here in my glass from Brazil, but it's also in Argentina, Bolivia, Australia, South Africa, Switzerland, and Sicily. Maybe others, and we don't know. But there are these obscure areas in France, like Val had mentioned. Iroulie, is that how you say it, I think, right? Iroulie.
Yes.
And they've got some rosés there. I haven't had that. Have you had that, Val?
I have not. Not a rosé from there.
Okay, yeah. So they have rosés and some more approachable reds. But overall, I mean, some of these vineyards are, these plantings are declining in France. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's like this booming grape over there. I didn't know this. I thought this was cool. It's easy to grow. It's frost hardy, not prone to overproduction or mildew. But it does, one of the things that makes it tricky, it's hard to de-stem because they have really thick stems. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And what about in the glass?
Well, in the glass, and this lines up with what's in my glass, especially this reserve one, the color is inky and dark. And even when I first poured it, there was, just kind of some of the bubbles around the edges that were very dark too. Everything about it was dark. And this wine just doesn't mess around, right? The reason why it's called Tannat is it implies these tannins. When I tried this reserve wine, the Garzon, I felt it for an extended time, a long time. So it just really kind of depends how the wine was made. I mean, the two different wines I have in my glass are so strikingly different. So it's not that you can't have a light Tannat, but technically when you're going to be speaking about it, it is a big, full-bodied, tannic, dark wine, very astringent and drying in the mouth. And in Uruguay, depending on how it's made, but they can soften these tannins by blending it like they do in France, but they also do that in Uruguay, and they blend it with Pinot or Merlot. They can also use winemaking techniques such as microoxygenation and make these wines more consumer friendly and drinkable now, as opposed to, some of these styles that might require, some decanting or aging. But it's kind of cool to think, now I haven't had any of these styles, but there are Beaujolais styles or even port type fortified Tannat wines. So I don't know how you would describe what's in your glass, but I definitely feel like there's, black fruit, spice, and some earthiness that really kind of goes with this structure. The people who really like full-bodied reds, this is their jam.
And when you say jam, because that's what actually I was thinking of. I was thinking like really juicy, dark, ripe, maybe some cooked, but it's compote kind of juiciness of black fruit. So it's like blackberry, like right out of the jar and warm.
Yeah.
And yes, it is. The fruit is still really, really good on this wine. So it's not like tannins and acid and nothing. It actually is well balanced. And I would say the alcohol is really well integrated in this wine too. It is a higher alcohol wine.
What
I
is
want to
it?
say it's 14.5.
Yeah.
But honestly, it is well integrated, really nicely balanced wine for $18. You know who has had... They're doing some carbonic maceration down there.
Yeah.
In Uruguay.
Yeah.
And I had an old 2012 wine book, and I saw that in there, and I thought, I wonder if they're still doing it. Well, if we mentioned Lynn on Savor the Harbor, she's been on the show, but she writes a really nice wine blog, and we've mentioned it was eligible for a wine award. But I read her Uruguay piece, and she actually had a maceration carbonica that was done, a Tannat.
Cool.
And they served chilled. Yeah. So she's actually had
chilled.
these. Yes. Yeah. So if you think of like a Beaujolais Nouveau style wine, that's what they do there. It's a whole cluster fermentation kind of situation in tanks and CO2, and it's really kind of a sexy way to make wine more drinkable quickly. We'll link up her blog again. It is linked at the bottom of the page. But the Uruguay piece, she got to taste quite a few different wines down there, and that was the piece that earned her a finalist position. So it's kind of interesting to know that some of our listeners have gotten to taste some of these things that even Steph and I haven't gotten to taste, and we do this for a living, so that's pretty exciting.
And not just taste, like she gets to be there.
She's there. She's writing about it. She's got some really great tips in there. She's got a restaurant recommendation, the Wine Roads Uruguay links. I mean, her blog is really, really nicely done. I have blog envy. So speaking of these wines, though, when they are not manipulated with something like microoxygenation or the carbonic maceration we've talked about, then you're going to need to age these things. So you're going to age them in wood, or you're going to let them hang out in the bottle. And what happens when they're bottle aging? I mentioned before we started podcasting, Steph lifted her glass. I'm like, oh, you must have the Brazilian wine in your glass, because I could tell by the color that it was lighter. It was more of a garnet color, less of this inky color that the Reserve Garzon in our glass, in her other glass. And I could just tell by looking at it over Skype. So what happens there, and I'm just going to get a little bit geeky on there because why not? It's that softening that happens in the bottle. The longer these wines sit in the bottle, the less aggressive these tannins become. And we're talking polymerization, people, because it's sexy. The molecules, they get all happy and they bind together. And that's what kind of rounds out their texture, because if the molecules become bigger and softer, and as they get heavier, which is part of the reason these wines not only soften with age, but also they become lighter. Red wines get lighter with age because of that polymerization. And so that sexy sediment at the bottom of the bottle, that's what's happening. It's these molecules binding together and precipitating out a lot of times. And that's why the wine becomes lighter in color, and that's why the tannins become softer, and that's why you age wines. And I just love that about wine.
I love it too. And I like the polymerization.
Polymerization, people. Oh, the We Like Drinking guys had, and I cannot remember who it was. It was a winemaker. I cannot remember this gentleman's name, but they went there briefly. They went into winemaking, and I was out on a walk listening to them talking about proteins and everything and polymers, and I was like, this is so exciting. So
that is exciting. Well, and I'm still, why am I not buying more of this? I don't know. I think it's just because it's not top of mind, or I just hadn't really had a producer that I really thought was good. I mean, this Garzon is excellent. And it kind of reminds me of how a lot of people don't know about Sagrantino wines either. And it's a good value and something you can lay down and is a full-bodied red. And this kind of I'm not saying that they taste the same or anything. I'm just saying that in some ways, wine lovers and collectors are missing out and spending so much money on Bordeaux or Barolo and some of these other very expensive wines when there's some great wines that you can lay down for 20 years. You just haven't heard of them, and they're a lot more affordable. So maybe they need something like the Judgment of Paris, but more for like Tannat wines to get on the grid.
I think that would be super exciting. And I think it was only a handful of years ago where just seeing a wine from Uruguay, I would get so excited. I'm like, how do you have this? I want to try an Uruguay Tannat. Now it's the only one I can find, and I'm not able to find the Madeira or any of these other wines. And it used to be, well, you can find Cahors a lot, and you can find some that have the Tannat in them. And it's fun to take like a wine from, let's say, a classic region like France.
Yeah.
Like, let's say we take a black wine of Cahors and then we compare it to a Malbec from Argentina. Well, same thing. We take a Tannat from Madeira and compare it to a Tannat from Uruguay. And I think you're going to be in for a surprise. And it's always really fun to do it with a group of people. Like I've done such a thing with clients before with a room full of like 20 or 30 people. And it's so much fun to see the feedback and the experiences that people are having.
Yeah.
But again, I've had to order these wines online when I still could, Colorado, but I actually served an Eruligi a couple years back. I had a French fringe wine dinner, and I had this one from Domaine Ilaria. It was a 2007, 70% Tannat, and it was like the hit of the evening. Like everybody loved it, and I thought it was going to be some big bombshell of a wine, but I love this wine. It is one you can find. It is one that I've seen a lot of people tasting in the Twitter feeds and the social media spaces. Béarn, you're not going to see so much. Tursan, I think I've seen some of our friends in France sipping on that one. Broulois, they use the Tannat there. Coteau de Quercy, they use it. These are all Southwest France appellations that use Tannat, and mostly it's blending grapes, of course, outside of Madeira. But it is such an interesting grape that brings so much like structure and color and interest to a wine. I would drink more of it. I like tannins though.
Yeah.
Black and bitter, like my soul.
I still can't believe I'm sitting here going, wow, your French fringe dinner was in 2016. That was just like, it seems like it wasn't that long ago, but man, time flies when you're drinking wine and having a fun podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, let's go on to the, actually, we are not doing a factoid this week. We are answering a burning wine question.
Yes, we're answering a burning wine question. We like to swap out these segments. So instead of factoid, because we just bombarded you with Tannat factoids, we have a burning wine question. We've got quite a few we need to get to, but we're going to answer one this week. And this is from my friend Mari. Mari Markwart asked, what's the difference between Weissherbst and Weissgekeltert? Now, before we give you the answer, I have to preface this by saying Mari lives in Germany. And she used to own vineyards. So I'm thinking she knows the answer to this, but she just wants us to answer it for the listeners, I think, because it's one of those things that we never talk about. We never talk about German rosé wines or German wines made with red grapes that the wines aren't red. So first of all, Mari, thank you for the question. We're so glad you listened. Let's talk about what the difference is between these things. What should our listeners know, Steph?
Well, Weissherbst, which translates to either white autumn or white harvest, is a German rosé wine made by a single variety. And it's a pink wine made from red grapes. Think like Pinot Noir, which in Germany they call it Spätburgunder. And it's either QBA or QMP. And this German term is also used in Switzerland on the German side, versus the other word, which was Weissgekeltert, is German for white pressed or white vinified. So like, have you ever had one of those like white Merlots or a white Pinot Noir? Well, that's what we're talking about. It's the German term for making a white wine with red grapes by gently pressing the red grapes so you only extract the white juice. But if you Google it, Weissgekeltert, it's also the name of a German winery, so you might find that too.
Kwaliteitswein Betstimmer and Bagabite. That's QBA. That's the one from one of the regions like Mosel, the 13 wine regions in Germany. So in case you're wondering what QBA is. So Kwaliteitswein mit Prädikat.
Yeah.
That is the quality, the top of the pyramid there. And then Kwaliteitswein Betstimmer and Bagavite is one that comes from like the 13 wine grown region. And Bagavite is one of the regions.
Yes.
So that's...
we good on you for good on you for speaking more German when you didn't have to, but I think that was excellent.
I'm trying to remember what that stuff stands for.
Yeah.
But actually, the Dr. von Bosserman Jordan Blanc de Noir I've had on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
It's that funky, sick white wine. It was a Cabernet Pinot blend.
I always have envy when you drink that.
You know what? And every time I see it, I grab it. It's probably one of my favorite wines right now, and it's been for years because it's like every time I see it I grab it. And then they've actually in more recent vintages added Merlot. I went to the website, they're totally sold out of it again. It's not something you see every day, but that would be a really good example of the Weissgelb-Keltert. Yeah, I don't
I'm going to say it one more time too. Weissgelb-Keltert or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, Hey, Mari, like leave us a speak pipe and like correct our German.
Please,
because
Mari.
I know you want to.
Please help us.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Thank you for the question. And I hope you guys can get a picture in your mind of what the differences between those two things. But
yeah, good question.
What about Wino Radar? What's on your Wino Radar, Steph?
Wino Radar. This is like, kind of like a shout out too, because we're giving some love to other podcasts, other podcasters. The Wine Enthusiast podcast launched their 3rd season recently, and so we wanted to let everybody know to check it out. The highlights are wine and wellness and how the two are not opposing forces. And that's cool because they even kind of talked about mocktails and, even somebody who's been on our show was on their show. So check that out. I'm not going to give it away. They also have highlighted American single malt versus Scotch and how to confidently order wine in a restaurant. So there's some things to look forward to, and you can visit winemag.com/podcast to check it out.
OPP, other people's podcast.
Hashtag OPP.
OPP.
And you know me.
You know me. I got the OPP.
What's on your Wino Radar?
And we're back to the Wino Radar. Mark your calendars if you'd like some more information about Tannat, because Society of Wine Educators has two webinars in May. One is Wednesday, May 23rd at 7 p.m. and the other one is Saturday morning, May 26th, 10 a.m. Central. It's called Let's Talk Tannat, and this is a taste-along webinar, and it's provided by our very own, we love us some Jane Nichols, CSE, CWE. And when Jane does this webinar, you want to tune in on a Saturday morning. She'll give you the wines that you're going to drink along. You get them, and then she'll tell you all about it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Wine students will recognize the Tannat grape variety as the main grape of Mataran, which we just talked about, and the superstar grape of Uruguay, but there's more to the story, and probably a lot of stuff we didn't even talk about today. So join them for the 1-hour webinar discussing the history, the wines, and the future of the Tannat grape. And that is from the Society of Wine Educators. So, yeah, see you in the chat room.
Yes.
Steph.
Much love to the webinars and the bubbly professor. We adore Jane Nichols. But we also love our patrons who support us on the crowdfunding platform Patreon, and our tenacious tasters, Jeff E. from We Like Drinking, who I have to give some extra love to because I am a patron of their podcast and just got some cool stuff in the mail. So check them out. Check out their Patreon page too. And Lynn, who we mentioned from Savor the Harvest, thank you. You are an awesome, tenacious taster. Sebastian of Sassy Italy Tours, who now has a cool Wine to 5 t-shirt that we know he's wearing all of the time. And Jen in Maryland. and the world, according to her Instagram feed. Go check her out. David and Lisa in Illinois and Anne-Marie in Virginia. Thank you to all of you guys. And it's not 5 o'clock and we don't care, listeners. Meg in South Dakota, Clay in Arizona, John, Andrew, and Iswani in California, Chantel in Ontario, Mary Lou in Pennsylvania, Kathy in Georgia, Chris, Janet, and Diane in Colorado, Steve and Renee in Illinois, Kathy in Tennessee, Ashley in North Carolina, and Sean in Ohio. Thank you, you guys.
And thank you to our Tastemaker listeners, David in Scotland, Carol in Kentucky, Karen in California, and you too can go to our Patreon page for details at www.patreon.com/wine25podcast, all spelled out. And then you can see how to be entered into our monthly drawings, exclusive content, and swag. And we are here every single week for you between episodes. You can find us in the social spaces at Wine25, and we encourage you to join our private Facebook group called Wine25 Community. You guys are drinking some really good #W25 challenge stuff. I mean, it's just loaded with people trying new things, and we love to see that. I'm Val. You can connect with me on Twitter. I'm at WineGalUnboxed, and as Vino with Val on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest once in a while. And you can find Steph everywhere. She's online as the Wine Heroine. So until next week, everybody, raise your glasses.
I'm trying to get both of them. Cheers!
And cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.